Hello everyone, welcome to my final deltarune theory before chapters 3 and 4 arrive. Don't worry, I have deltarune theories planned, but before that I need to write Undertale theories since this is an Undertale channel. Now, if you didn't read the title, then let me explain. This is a theory going over the rest of the chapters. I won't be talking about the night or weird root or other complex stuff. This is just a video on predictions that aren't out there. But before we begin, we have to talk about how I'm structuring this video. Firstly, we'll be talking about chapters 3 to 7 and give some ideas for future chapters. While I talk about the chapter, I'll mention the Dark World, the characters who appear, and how this place being a dark world relates to Deltarune's themes. For those who don't know, the game points towards each and every final boss of a chapter being related to chess pieces. For example, King and Queen are similar to chess pieces, with them having the exact same name. Every dark world is related to themes of escapism. Chapter 1 has toys and Chapter 2 has computers. Every dark world is also like the Undertale areas in reverse order. Chapter 1 is like New Home and Chapter 2 is like the core. Lastly, we're going to discuss all the lighteners who appear in the dark worlds. And with all that out of the way, let's begin. Starting off with Chapter 3, it's basically confirmed to be in Tyriel's house. This means Tyriel will join us in the dark world and possibly become a party member. Two possible characters are Undyne and Napstablook. Now, most people theorize it's just one of them who's coming, but there is a possibility we see both of them. But one character who we absolutely know will be in this dark world is Relsei. This is because of the new trailer, which we'll discuss later. As for chess theory, there are two rooks in chess, and we could assume Mike and Tennu are the rooks because Mikaruk sounds like Mike Rook, and Tennu because it's the TV, who's definitely one of the bosses. Regarding the theme of escapism, Chapter 3 screenshots show it being TV themed, and that is absolutely related to escapism. Lastly, if the chapters are in reverse order of Undertale, then Chapter 3 would be like Hotland. This makes sense since Hotland has lots of show gigs, and it would make sense for the rooks to have Metaton-like gigs. Now, regarding the end, I feel like we'll wake up late at night the next day. Tyriel mistakes it for Sunday and we'll go straight to church. Now for Chapter 4, which I already spoiled as the church, but there was lots of evidence for this theory. For starters, the next chess piece is a bishop, and the church is where you mainly see bishops. Then, church is on Sunday, and Chapter 2 is implied to have taken place on a Friday, and it's possible we see the Dark Fountain pretty early on in the day, and that's why we spend the rest of the chapter exploring the light world. Also, we haven't been in the church, and it would make sense for an area we haven't been to yet to be a dark world. If you're wondering about Chapter 3, Toby confirmed it's going to be different towards the other chapters, and this might be part of the reason why. And to put the nail in the coffin, the trailer for Chapters 3 and 4 have these church-like windows confirming it to be the church. But how is a church related to escapism? Well, in a church you pray, and praying is seen as you talking to God in some religions and forgetting about your non-religious responsibilities. Now, if the reverse Undertale area theory is correct, the church would have to be like waterfall, and there's more evidence to this than at a first glance. For starters, the lighting of the church is mainly blue like waterfall. Then, there's the fact Alvin is related to the church, and in Undertale waterfall is the area where we meet Jerson, who is Alvin's father. Lastly, waterfall reveals a lot about the game's story and even mentions the deltarune. Now, for Deltarune the game, we have a prophecy, and we also have the angel, which Chapter 4 would be the perfect place to learn something more about this prophecy. Now, for the characters, there are two who I think are joining this adventure. Firstly, I want to let you know that the Dark World isn't going to be the whole church, but rather the youth group. Why? Well, it's because the two characters I think are joining are both teens. The first is Jockington, who was confirmed in the Steam page. He will obviously grow the beard and become even more of a Chad. The next is Catty. Firstly, she's a big Jockington fan, and it would make sense for her to join Jockington in the Dark World. The other important factor is her seemingly knowing about the occult with Chris and learning spells in the light world. This could also have very interesting implications for a weird root, but I'm not going to touch on that. Now, for chapter 5. This is the chapter where we're most likely going to know where the knight is. So, who is it? Well, given I've talked about the other chess pieces in their same amount, I think it's only fair I do the same with the knight. So, I think there are going to be two knights. The first is Chris, who I think will only open the chapter 3 Dark World, and the other is Papyrus. So, this part is just me giving reasoning as to why Papyrus is the knight. Firstly, he has hands, arms, is determined, and might be related to Gaster, who is somehow connected to the Dark Worlds. Secondly, Papyrus wants friends, and all the Dark Worlds that aren't made by Chris are places where you'd make friends. Furthermore, Papyrus might not know of the dangers that the Dark Worlds will cause. Lastly, if Papyrus is the Eggman and the Knight are the same person, then it would explain why there's an egg in the hangout. Now that we've solved the Knight, where will this Dark World take place? Well, I have two theories. The first is Sen's house. This seems convincing at first, but it would be weird to have another Dark World. So, where do I think the second Dark World will be? Well, I think it's at Isis. The reasoning for this is due to Burger Pants having new text icons and new clothes. And you know who else has new text icons and new clothes? That's right, every character in a Dark World. So, how is this related to escapism? Well, restaurants are a great place to come and forget about responsibilities. But how is this related to Snowdin? Simple. Snowdin is a cold place, and there is a certain character who is known for being cold. That's right, it's Icy. To prove my point, the only time Icy is mentioned in Undertale is in a word search from Sans Undertale, who is also Sans deltarune. Anyways, now it's time for chapter 6. This one won't be as long as the others, mainly due to the fact I've covered this chapter in my last theory. To summarize, I think chapter 6 will be at Asgore's place, and it will be like the ruins, with the main antagonist being 8 flowers to make up for the 8 pawns in chess. Furthermore, the mayor will also be in this, with her coming to kick Asgore out. Also, if you're curious about how this relates to escapism, plants can be a hobby for some and can lead to them forgetting about life. One more thing before we go to chapter 7. If you're wondering why Papyrus would open a Dark World after he knows about the dangers, I think it's actually Chris who opens it, since they know about the dangers of the Dark World and still open a Dark Fountain. It would make sense for them to do it again. Furthermore, Asgore is Chris's father, and opening a Dark World with a family member to join could be for some family bonding. One more thing, this is where I think the roaring happens at the end. Now, it's time for chapter 7. If I'm being honest, I think this chapter won't be the bunker. Don't worry though, because I still think the bunker is important. Instead of chapter 7 being the bunker, I think it's us, the soul, looking for someone else to possess. I think this someone is none other than Israel. The reasoning is because he's far away, and it's possible he's near some sort of shelter and is hiding inside. After that, I think most of the chapter being Israel trying to make his way back to hometown and freeing the heroes from their suffering to put an end to the roaring, fulfilling the prophecy and giving the casual deltarune fans the ending they expected. But if they do the weird route, then this is where things will change immensely. First things first, instead of playing as Israel, I think Noelle will be our pick due to her having the strength of an angel and possibly having the strength to withstand the roaring. This version of the chapter will be about discovering secrets until we find what we were looking for. You see, Noelle is obsessed with finding bugs, so if my theory is correct, then we may be able to glitch to an area we haven't seen before, the bunker. So, if you've seen my weird route theory, then you'd know that I think the weird route will allow us to play an 8th chapter of deltarune. This chapter will be about discovering everything to do with Gaster and finding out about what happened to Dis. I think it would be too late at this point to save the world, and I think we'll be soft locked or just trapped in the bunker, all due to us wanting to find secrets. It would also be a perfect punishment since we go out of our way to make a difference, and this would most likely annoy Gaster to the point he leaves us trapped as a punishment for breaking the game. And that is my future chapter predictions. In terms of how confident I am 99.9% confident I'm right about chapters 3 and 4. Somewhat confident for chapters 5 and 6. And if I'm being honest, my predictions for chapters 7 and 8 are so wild, I couldn't even follow my structure for those chapters. Anyways, it's late at the time of writing this and I need to go to bed, so see you guys and guests and everyone else next time.